Okay, obviously I'm Charles.
And I'm Kathleen.
Okay, and just a little mini biography. Kathy and I are married. Some people actually don't know that. We've been married for about 34 years. We have 2 children, both living in Los Angeles right now. They've grown up. We have been involved with Oxford University Press for the past 20 years. We have written 3 courses with them: Oxford Discover, Everybody Up, and Magic Time. And it's a great honor to have this opportunity to talk to all of you for wherever you may be coming from. And we're seeing some wonderful, wonderful messages here in the chat box. So great. Oh, Kathy.
So we've been living here in Japan for over 30 years. We really love it, and we have found it to be a wonderful home. During that time, I've been teaching at an international school. I work with very young learners, children from the age of 2 up through age 12, as well as teaching private English lessons in our home.
Exactly. So let's get started. The title of our webinar is Supporting Agency in the 2020 Classroom. We're going to get into what that means and how we can find practical ways to implement it in the classroom. Okay, so that didn't seem to work, so okay.
Okay, so Josh, could you put up our poll to start with?
Okay, so we have a poll for you right now.
So we want to find out what changes you've experienced in your teaching in 2020. Mm-hmm. So here's the poll.
Here we go. That's not ours, right?
This is not our poll.
That's Vanessa's.
Yeah.
Okay. That is not our poll, but we'll see if you can pop up the other one.
There's so many different windows that need to come and go.
Actually,
here.
Explain the poll, Kathy.
So in the poll, we're going to be thinking about, have you been teaching online during this time? Have you been teaching face-to-face, or have you had an experience to do both? And for me, from March, my school went online, and so I did online teaching using Zoom and Seesaw. And then this year, we've gone back to face-to-face teaching. So it's been really interesting to see the changes that we need to do with our teaching right now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Maybe we should just keep on moving because we have so much to do today. So that's okay. We won't worry about the poll right now. So we're thinking about what changes you've experienced. So this is my little kit. Every morning we take our temperature. We use hand sanitizer. I have a wide variety of masks that I use. And my students are practicing social distancing. And because of all those things, it impacts the way that I teach in my face-to-face classroom.
Mm-hmm. We do see some answers here. Face-to-face, online. I'm sure there's a variety out there. Good.
Great.
Lots of changes this year. Great.
Great. So as our students have been going through these changes with face-to-face and the changes we do in our classrooms and online, we find that we really need to tune in with our students. How do they feel during the day? Do they feel happy, sad? And so we have some activities like this one by Carla Watley on Seesaw, checking in with our students. How do you feel every day? We also want to make sure that they feel balanced, and we find that sometimes the students can be a little bit sad or upset. Josh, could you play the music by Naoko Hashimoto? I found that this is really helpful, so please put your hand up. And we're going to be tracing around the outside of our hand. So you're going to take your other finger, and we're going to inhale, and you're going to exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And they could do it back. Rub your hands together. Take a deep breath in and exhale. And now let's brush up our arms. I'm going to stand up so you can see. Sometimes when students are frustrated, you brush out their frustrations. That's that tactile movement. So we found with our students doing these things really help in giving our students a strong social, emotional framework to start their day.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
That's great. Okay.
I teach also with 6 kindergarten teachers, and one of the classes did this activity where the students were given square pieces of origami paper. And the students had a chance to decide what they were going to do with this paper. So some of them cut them in half to make triangles. Some of them cut off the corners to make circles. And then they could decide what would happen in their picture. So you can see we have rockets. We have like a festival happening in the middle. And we have what they called the crazy rocket. But students had a chance to make a lot of choices and to decide what they were going to work on.
So what, in fact, is student agency? We're going to be talking about it through this webinar. basically refers to the level of autonomy and power that a student experiences in the learning environment, in our classrooms. Agency gives students the power to direct and take responsibility for their learning, creating independent and self-regulating learners. So in our English language classrooms, we're going to be looking for ways to get our students actively involved as participants in the learning process, offering all of their own suggestions and their own voice in this process, which makes it much more motivating. Oops, here we go. So how can we support student agency? We're going to focus on 3 areas: student choice, student voice, and student ownership. Let's look at each carefully.
So when we think about student choice, we're going to give students choices about the content they're learning, the tools and resources they use to learn, and the environments in which they learn. In the Montessori school that I work with, the kindergarten children, they have a lot of choices that they can do in those classrooms.
Very connected to student choice is student voice, giving students a voice in the classroom, in their wondering and inquiring as we go through the topics, in how they learn, and also in how they assess what they have learned. We're going to look at ways to do that.
And then student ownership. Students gain ownership of their learning by working independently, by themselves, or with their peers, by discussing what they've learned in pairs, in small groups, or as a whole class discussion, and by demonstrating what they've learned. And this can be throughout the learning process. It can be at the very beginning, throughout the middle, and finally as summative projects at the end.
So all of this involves making students active members of their own learning, not passive but active.
And when we look at these 3 areas, student choice, student voice, and ownership, some of them kind of crisscross over and mix together. So you'll see some overlap in those areas.
Exactly. We're going to be using examples from our course, Oxford Discover. We are so proud of this course. Oxford Discover is an ESL course, and basically it's a very, very good course in terms of building vocabulary and grammar development very, very strongly, as well as the 4 skills of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. But throughout that, it is an inquiry-based course, which gets students actively involved in the learning process, asking questions and seeking answers. There are 6 levels to Oxford Discover, as well as a show and tell level previous to it, but we're going to focus on the first 4 levels. This is levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Kathy and I wrote levels 3 and 4, as you can see here. So we'll be using examples from that, as well as from Kathy's experience in her international school. When we look at inquiry-based learning, we want to refer to what we call the KWL system. A KWL chart supports student choice, voice, and ownership throughout the process. Let's look at this a little bit more carefully. When we introduce a topic to our students, first of all, we want to know what students already know about this topic. So we invite them to tell us their own experience. This is a very important part of getting student voice. So students contribute to this process and they say, this is what I already know. This is what I've learned. And so we can assess where students are at in terms of this topic, and we can also take care of any misconceptions they might have. The second area is what students want to know. We then move into asking students, what would you like to learn about this topic? What are you curious about? What are you wondering about? Again, students actively involved in the learning process. And then as we move through each lesson and through the unit, we invite students to talk about what they've already learned, how they are developing through this process. So the KWL chart is a wonderful way to get student agency developed in your classroom.
And it's great because we can see as time goes on how the learning is progressing.
Some of the questions that we ask in Oxford Discover are big questions, and we do this throughout 2 units. For example, who are your family and friends? Nice big topic for students to discuss. Why should we take care of the earth? Very, very important question today. Why do people write poems? So this is a literary side to our learning. And how do we know what happened long ago? This is just a sample of all the many questions that we ask and invite students to participate in Oxford Discover.
So let's delve a little bit more about student choice. Remember we talked about students, we're going to give students choices about the content they're learning, the tools and resources they use to learn, and the environments in which they learn. So let's look again at at the kindergarten pictures I showed you at the beginning. The kindergarten teacher said, what would you like to make a picture about? And this is Momo's picture. Momo lives on the top floor of a big apartment building. So she wanted to make a picture of her apartment building. So you can see how she has this idea of the houses stacked up. The tools and resources, they could choose those square pieces of paper, any color that they wanted, and they could choose how they were going to make their triangles and circles and squares. In her classroom, she could choose to work on the floor on a mat or at a table by herself or with a classmate. This is a beautiful picture from Oxford Discover Level 1. The big question is, where can we see colors? Look at all the things that your students could talk about in this picture. What can you see in this picture? What things do you know about? What things maybe they're not certain? I don't know what it is. So students can spend time talking about this. We can list the things on the whiteboard. We can list things online if we're on a Zoom lesson. We also have a video where students have a chance to see more in detail, and those are beautiful videos. Now let's imagine that you are our students, and we're going to ask you, where can you see color? Now if you have very young learners and you need to scaffold your learning, you might ask first of all, can you find something red? But since you are grown up, I'm going to ask you to find anything that's colorful right now and bring it back. And when you get back, would you write in the chat box what it is that you found? For example, if it's a red apple, write that in the chat box. Okay, ready, go. So for those of you that are still here, we want to explain that this is an online scavenger hunt. And it's really fun for the students to bring their home environment into their learning.
We got red apple.
Red apple, yellow box.
Yellow box.
So in our
red pillow. Good.
Wonderful. So in our Zoom lessons, it was really fun for my students to say, this is my red bird, or this is my green frog. So they could bring all of those things and show it and explain to us all about it. If they're at school, they can bring those things as a show and tell, and we can create a beautiful display in our classroom with their own items. Wonderful.
I think one of the nice things about online learning is that a child's home becomes the classroom, and they can take advantage of all the things that they have and personalize the lesson in that way.
Exactly. So in this lesson, in this unit, one of the things that we want to talk about is how do we actually make colors? So you can see in this picture, let's see, here's our pointer. You can see here, my pointer's in the wrong spot, so I think I'm going to just move that. You can see that yellow and red make orange. Yellow, blue, and red are our primary colors, and those three colors make the three secondary colors. So you can see that yellow and red make orange, yellow and blue make green, red and blue make purple. And you can see that in the color wheel. This is in the book, and we want to do something active with the students. We want to take it out of the book. So as you can see in this picture, and it's not very clear there, I want to show you here, maybe this is better, where I colored it in darker. We use the three primary colors. You can take your pencils, and the students can color. What happens if I mix yellow and blue together? What color will I get? What happens if I mix yellow and red, or red and blue together? What will I get? And so on. We also have some little chips, and with these little colored chips, can you see them? They're quite tiny, but I've taken a picture of them. With the colored chips, it's easy for them to see that the two colors together, blue and yellow, make green. So that's a really fun thing to do with the students. As a summative project in this unit, the students choose two primary colors. So you can see there's red and blue. Those are the outside columns. And the students draw things that they know that are in those two colors. And then in the middle, they write down the secondary color, which is purple, and they draw pictures of those things. Finally, the student shows their work, and they explain, these are the things that I've made.
Exactly.
We'll write in the chat later about those chips. Thank you. I'll share that with you. Thank you so much for asking. They're really handy. My school values creativity a lot, and so I instill that in everything that I do with my students. So in a creative, students need to have choices, and we need to listen to our students' ideas. So first of all, to build confidence, we need to show our students what to do. We call that modeling. Then we can give choices to build creativity. So with my very young learners, I might give them just two choices. Now this chant works fabulously. So I hope that you take this and use this with your little ones. So do this with me. You say, Think, 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 think. Your turn. Think, 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 think. And then we say, what should we do? Your turn. What should we do? Great. And if you're online, you'll notice that there's a delay in the sound. So it's a little bit tricky, but it still works to do this. Let's try together. Think, 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 think. What should we do? Excellent. Now let's imagine that I was singing the song from Magic Time. I can swim, I can swim, 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 I can swim. And then we'd say, think, 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 think. What should we do? And I might call on a student's name like, Ayaka, what should we do? Should we ride a bike or jump rope? And she might say, ride a bike. As students know this language even better, she might say, what else could we do? Let's skip. She might have some other ideas. So then we add that to the song. In my kindergarten, the students have been learning about these big muscle movements. We call them gross motor movements. And we did this through learning about animals. They had so much fun. So when we first did this, we did think, 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 think. What should we do? And the student might say, let's move like frogs. And then they'd all jump around the room like frogs. And then we'd learn a different animal. Think, 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 think. What should we do? Oh, let's be horses. And they would move around the room. Once we did all 6 animals, I said to them, now choose 3 of your favorites. And we put on some instrumental music, and they would move around the classroom. And we asked the other students, who were like the audience, what did you see? I saw a horse. I saw a bear. And that was really powerful for the students. We're also doing a unit right now on healthy choices. And maybe this is something you do with your students. We're learning about healthy fruits and vegetables. So I taught the students this song called Apples and Bananas, which is a traditional song. It goes like this. I'll just sing it for you and you can follow along. It goes, I like to eat, eat, eat apples and bananas. I like to eat, eat, eat apples and bananas. Then the students say, think, 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 think. What should we eat? Think, 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 think. What should we eat? Would you write in the chat box, what would you like to eat? Tell me something you would like to eat. My student said, grapes. I like grapes. I like strawberries. Nice. Banana, apples. Name something that we haven't named yet. Kiwi, grapes, banana, lychee. Wow, we have so many great ideas. Let me show you what my students generated. We talked about foods that go together. For example, rice and meat, grapefruit and apples, because those are both fruits. Potatoes and carrots, because those are both vegetables. So this is an easy way to give students choice. Thank you for sharing durian. Wow, I don't think we've ever eaten durian.
No, I've heard of it though.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Okay, for Oxford Discover Level 1, we have a numbers unit, and in the second, numbers focus, and in the second unit we introduce food and how we count food. So we have some new vocabulary on this page. As you can see, there are various types of food. So we first learn about this food, students, and then we take the vocabulary that students have learned and we put it into a reading. This is a fictional reading called Stone Soup. And so students see the vocabulary they've learned in the context of the story. And then once they've learned about the story, we turn it into a play where students have an opportunity to be the characters. Now in Stone Soup, the villagers are creating soup, and everyone has to contribute some food to put into the pot. So as you can see, there's a lot of opportunities here for student choice. Kathy's going to pop in here.
So okay. I thought that I should get dressed up in a costume, and I have some simple costumes for my students so that if we decide to do something with cooking, it's really easy to do that. I prepared a little bowl. This is a bowl we had at our house, and a spoon. So the students might say, let's add green beans, or let's add peas, potatoes to our soup. And if I take my scarves, I can make it look like a fire underneath. So we can help our students use their imagination. They could draw pictures of those different fruits or of different vegetables that they might add into this soup. So it's really fun for them to have other things that help them remember it in a more vivid way.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, Kathy's changing back. Let's move on. Student voice. Now, we've talked about the choices that students can make in all of their lessons, and we really want to give them opportunities to make choices, and that really deepens their motivation in learning. Now, student voice is very closely connected to that. We want students to have a voice in how they learn, in wondering and inquiring, and in assessing what they've learned. All of these are very important, and it's embedded in Oxford Discover. One of the best ways to get students actively involved in a lesson and adding voice is to use higher order thinking skills, what we often call HOTS. Sometimes we refer to it as critical thinking, deeper learning, but it goes beyond simple comprehension. Let's look at an example. This is from Bloom's Revised Taxonomy. The lower thinking skills at the bottom of this graph, you see remembering and understanding. Very important, but those are the lower order skills and they come first. What we want to do is to move our students up the ladder to apply, analyze, and evaluate and create with what they've learned. If we do this, we are getting into deeper learning, deeper thinking, which is much more motivating for students. Let's give an example. Okay, can we maybe pop that out? Good. All right. So this comes from level 3 of Oxford Discover. We are introducing a variety of transportation for students to learn. So we have 10 items here. Of course, you can see subway, fire engine, carpool, ambulance, and so forth. So the first step, of course, is comprehension. Students have to be able to identify the words, know how to pronounce them, understand, and comprehend what they mean. But going deeper, if you look at letter B below this list, we say 2 of the 3 answers are correct. Cross out the wrong answer. Number 1, it uses flashing lights when driving. I need my glasses. It uses flashing lights when it drives on busy streets. And which answer does not belong? Taxi, fire engine, or ambulance? Please put it in the chat box. It uses flashing lights. Which one does not belong? Exactly. Taxi does not have flashing lights. So students have made a connection. Fire engines and ambulances have flashing lights because they're emergency vehicles. So then we invite our students, we ask them, well, if you're in the car with mommy or daddy and there's a flashing light behind you, what do you do? Any suggestions when you see flashing lights behind you? Someone's typing away, multiple, pulling over, exactly, getting out of the way because the fire engine has to get to the fire to put it out. So we discuss more deeply what entails an emergency vehicle. And I've often told my students, well, I'd like to put flashing lights on a taxi so that it can get me to the airport faster. That way everyone will pull out of the way and I'll get to the plane on time. Does that make sense? Students think about that. That's not really an emergency. So go beyond the simple answer to the question and think deeply. Invite students to think deeply about the vocabulary that they're learning.
Yeah, rather than just checking off the answer that it's correct, take time to find out more.
Exactly. Here's another example in the concept of time. We introduce the concepts of time through seconds, minutes, hours, days, and so forth. To personalize it and add student voice, we invite students to think about how much time it takes to do certain activities. If you see under activity B, to say good morning takes a matter of seconds. How long does it take to do homework? Well, if we get students talking about that, they're going to have a lot to say about that. How long does it take to eat lunch? Do you have enough time to eat lunch? How long does it take for your mom or dad to cook a meal? And so forth and so on. You can get into many different areas of discussion.
And students, if you have Post-it notes in your room, you can have students write their own suggestion, and students can walk around like a gallery walk and decide, wow, I don't know how long that would take me. They have lots of different suggestions. How long does it take you to go to school?
So as you can see, we're taking the topic, the vocabulary that's necessary, the grammar that's necessary, and we're personalizing it. We're putting it into the students' arena where they can talk about it and learn from each other. Okay, let's move on.
So this is from the lesson or the unit, Why Do People Move to New Places? And as you can see, we have vocabulary that talk about moving, packing, moving, meeting neighbors. A lot of these things take place in a certain environment. So you can see ice skating, dancing, raking leaves. So we want to ask our students, where do we do these activities? Do you do them usually indoors, outdoors, or both? So from your personal experience, would you choose one of those vocabulary words or phrases and decide where we do them both indoors and outdoors? And write it in the chat right now.
From your own experience.
From your own experience. Ah, dancing. Yay! We love dancing. Indoors and
you know, and
outdoors.
you could talk about when do you dance indoors, when do you dance outdoors. So much to discuss for students.
Wow,
Dancing
a lot
again,
of people,
good.
we love to dance.
Right.
Yeah, tennis.
No one has written throwing snowballs. I don't understand why. Okay.
So when you look at these vocabulary words, the students can take these words and think about what they can do both indoors and outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
This is called the Venn diagram, so it's a great way for sorting out information, indoors,
Comparing
outdoors, and both, right? For us, where we come from in Minnesota, people go fishing both outdoors on the lake, and in the wintertime, they put houses on the lake, and they can fish indoors.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Neat cultural experience.
Right,
there.
exactly. Thank you for sharing. This is from our poetry unit, and you can see that there are different insects. The students will be learning beautiful poems about these insects. One thing that we want to do is have students think about how we describe these insects. So we want to give them a way to express themselves about them. So if you look at the ladybug, what do you think? Is the ladybug colorful, beautiful? Is it quick? Is it noisy? Is it ugly? The students have a chance to express their opinion about what they think about ladybugs and all of those insects. I see someone said a ladybug is cute.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, exactly.
So they have to choose out of those words. And we have many other critical thinking questions from Oxford Discover to motivate student thinking.
Critical thinking activities do not have simple yes or no answers. They get students thinking deeply, and so there's a lot of different opinions and perspectives, and that's what builds language. So.
And it makes our teaching really interesting.
Yes, very motivating for students.
Yeah.
Okay. Oxford Discover, every unit introduces a reading, either a nonfiction or fictional reading. The ability to read well is extremely important, and so we build these reading skills throughout the levels in Oxford Discover. The process is this. If you look at the first page, we first introduce vocabulary. So there are 10 new words that students will learn. We do something with that vocabulary, something that involves critical thinking, managing it, organizing it, comparing and contrasting it, as you can see on the left side of this page. Now on the right side, we're going to introduce the reading, and we always begin with a reading strategy. We want students to become strong critical readers, and so before every reading we introduce a strategy that helps them to be better at reading. This particular strategy is to focus on cause and effect. When something happens, what happens as a result? So students think about cause and effect. We explore that for a while. Also at the bottom of the page you see these yellow words in context. Those are new words that students will see in the reading, and based on the context of the reading they will try to determine the meaning without looking at a dictionary or being told. So that develops that critical thinking skill of learning through the context of the reading. This particular reading is non-fictional. It's called The Life of a Sunflower. The focus of these two units are on plants. So what students will do is read about this. There can be reading done together in the classroom, or a narrator can do it on the tape script. We will activate their knowledge of cause and effect through these little think boxes. So we do a lot of activities for the students to make sure that they comprehend the reading. Now, what we like to do after this is, instead of the teacher asking questions, why not let the students ask each other questions? So what we do is we get students to ask each other questions about the reading. Now we can scaffold this. So at the beginning, we would suggest that students provide true or false statements to each other. For example, a sunflower is a plant, true or false, and the students can answer. Or it can also be put into a yes or no question. Is a sunflower a plant? Then we move on to information questions. The who, what, where, when, how type questions that are a little bit deeper. And finally, we invite students to move into the deeper wondering questions, the questions that might require a little bit of research, in which there isn't just one answer. So students develop great skills in asking each other questions, which is a very important part of Oxford Discover. This is another reading from the second unit. As I said, there's a non-fictional and a fictional reading for each topic. So in the topic of plants, this is a fictional story about a little girl who plants a sunflower in the spring. And she's so proud of her sunflower. And then in the fall, it suddenly withers and dies. And she's so sad about it. So it's talking about the circle of life, very deep subject for students. But again, they are invited to ask each other questions about it. And the questions would be of a different nature. We'd be talking about the characters, their emotions, what did they, why did they do what they did, and projecting what they might do in the future. So this is a very important part of the process. So thank you. 10 minutes to go. Thank you for the hand. Yep, good. Okay.
So now we're going to look at student voice in Oxford Discover writing projects. Writing is also one of the very important skills that we teach our students through this course. So this comes from the unit on poetry. May I borrow your glasses?
Yeah.
I just realized that I can't.
Really small.
I can't read this. Oh goodness, I can't even read it with this.
I can read it for you.
Okay.
Okay, so at the top it says you can be a poet, and there's, maybe I can't read it too. So it says a good poet basically uses imagination and what are the other two things? I can't even read it right here.
Well, what I can remember is that a student needs to observe carefully. They need to use their imagination. And
yeah, we share glasses.
Yeah, yes, we do. Well, we usually don't. But anyway, these are qualities that we want our students to be. To become a poet, we would need to do these things. And we want our students to be good poets.
Exactly.
So we expose them to 3 different kinds of poetry here: acrostic, synchron, and haiku. And today we'd like you to write an acrostic. This acrostic, the letters from top to bottom say the word Hawaii. And the words from each of those letters are hot, aloha, waves, angelfish, interesting, and islands. Those words tell us about the word Hawaii. So for you, we're going to ask you to do this in your hashtag Oxford Day Online 2020.
Yeah, you don't have to put it on the...
We're going to do that online, not in the chat box.
Not in the chat box.
So you need to choose a word that you're going to write vertically, like your name. Write words that go with each of the letters from your name, and they should tell us something more about you.
Do you see Tracy just put the hashtag? So
yes.
Create your acrostic poem with your name or any other word that you want.
So we look forward to seeing this in this online Oxford Day Online 2020.
Exactly.
So you'll be getting the slides so you can take a little bit more time to do this. Okay, let's keep moving on.
Yeah, we have much more to do. Okay, there's just... at the end of every 2 units of Oxford Discover, we introduce a writing project. Now, writing is such an important part of the development of our students' English skills. We want them to be great writers, not just good writers. And so we introduce a variety of genres of writing after every 2 units. And again, this is too small for me to see, but it's an opinion essay, basically. Students have an opportunity to write their opinion about something. And yeah, so we're going to be looking it up over here. And this is just one of the genres, and we give them very, very concrete examples. There's an example in the student book and another example in the workbook. So students see some very important examples on how to write. And we lead them step by step, and they use all of the content they've learned in the previous units to write what they need to. So opinion essay. The next one is steps in a process. This comes from the topic, why do we need plants? So this particular one is how to grow spinach. And one that I especially like is a fictional interview with an explorer from the past. So students have to choose an explorer from history, and they have to set up a series of questions with the explorer. And of course, the answers that the explorer gives has to be historically correct. So all of these genres really get students motivated to bring in their own opinions, their own choices, their own voice in what they want to say. Okay, we have 6 minutes left, Kathy. So
yep. So last of all, we're going to talk about student ownership. So let's just move right into those activities. So in student ownership, at the end of every 2 units of Oxford Discover, we have a project. And I love these projects. The students are working on collaboration. So when you think collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity, they're working on those global skills through these projects, which are summarizing, that are pulling together all the information they've learned in this particular unit. You can see here in the project, there are step-by-step things for them to do, so students can follow these steps easily, so they know what they need to do, but there's a lot of freedom for them to express themselves.
Make choices, right.
So practice your presentation, make sure each group can talk about at least one object. So we would talk about, we need to have clear voices when we're speaking and presenting. This is a great opportunity if you're videotaping things for digital portfolios. This is great, like we would do this in our seesaw. Students would videotape their summative work and reflect upon it.
Exactly. Creating a school news program, that's another one where students can work together, they make choices about what they're going to present upon.
Right.
And, yeah.
And so some of the things too, it says try to memorize what you will say. So there are some little tidbits of information to help them become better presenters, better speakers, better researchers.
Very quickly, this is an energy unit about where does our energy come from, and it's such an important topic now with all of the global warming and the discussion about fossil fuels and green energy. So we created a character called Hector the Energy Saver, and Hector is this little superhero who tries to help people save energy. So the students really get into this story. As you can see, all of the vocabulary they learn is embedded in the reading, and then later, for the summative project, we have a panel discussion. The students become their own little Hector energy savers, and they decide how can we save energy. So they have a panel discussion. Students get together and decide different ways that they can save energy. And now this is some examples from Kathy's school.
So at my school, Seisen International School in Tokyo, Japan, our students participated in a single-use plastic day. And so on that day, we decided that we were using too many
Pet
bottles.
Yeah, water
we had
bottles.
too many bottles, and so the students asked that we would get some refill stations around school. And you can see from just this one refill station, we have saved 14,442 plastic bottles. Mm-hmm. I think that's quite impressive. And we have stations like this all around our school. In the morning, my students, I'm in charge of kindergarten students in the morning, and we spread them out with these hoops for social distancing.
Each person stands in a hoop, right?
Right. Each person stands in a hoop to keep them socially distanced, and then we take their temperature and they sanitize their hands. But one of the students noticed that as time went on, the hoops got closer and closer together. So she said, I'm going to take action by spreading them out again. So that's a great way to see this ownership. There's a problem, and she solved it.
Yeah, she felt like she could contribute.
My kindergarten student said, Miss Kampa, this puppet is not wearing a mask. So this student in elementary school said, don't worry, Miss Kampa, I will make one for you. So she made this cute little mask out of her school uniform.
Right.
Maybe she'll have to revise it a little bit. It's a little bit small. But the students were really happy. The kindergarten students were happy to see this, and she was really proud of her work. So as you can see, we have agency happening throughout all of our classes. Look at this cute little teddy bear house. Circles, squares, triangles. Students expressing themselves in many different ways.
So as we conclude, you've seen many examples, as Kathy said, of student choice, student voice, and student ownership. And it all comes down to getting students involved in the learning process so that they feel they are partners with the teacher. And Oxford Discover provides all of that in the course. So have a look at it. And we'd like to ask you, how will you support student agencies starting this next week? What are ways that you can create stronger student choice, student voice, and student ownership in your lessons?
So would you hashtag Oxford Day Online 2020 and send us that information. Think about what you're doing right now and what tiny little tweaks can you make to support student agency, giving students more choice, asking for their opinions, giving them more opportunities for ownership.
And what we love about this is that the bottom line is, as students are motivated to learn, excited to enter the English classroom, excited to contribute and to talk about their own experiences, all of those English skills grow exponentially. Their ability to listen, speak, read, and write in all of these topics just skyrockets. And so it's a wonderful way for us to teach English in our classrooms through courses such as Oxford Discover and just really getting students motivated to learn.
And so we hope that in this pandemic time in 2020, whether you're teaching online or you're teaching face-to-face, that you can take some of these little tidbits and strategies and use them with your students in your classroom. You'll find you'll have independent, excited, motivated learners. Even very little students can do this.
Exactly.
So thank you so much. Thank you to Oxford University Press for supporting us today. Thank you, Josh, for being our moderator. And thank you to all of you for joining us today.
It's been a privilege to talk with you today. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.